On the morning of June 28, 1914, in the city of Sarajevo, a single act of violence altered the course of human history. The shots fired by a teenage assassin did not just kill a man and his wife, they ignited a chain reaction that plunged the world into a war unlike anything humanity had ever seen. This is the story of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. At the dawn of the 20th century, Europe was a continent on edge. For decades, the great powers had competed in an arms race, building vast armies and navies. Nations were bound together in a web of alliances, an invisible tripwire that meant any small conflict could trigger something far greater. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, a crumbling patchwork of nationalities and tensions, faced growing unrest. In Bosnia, Serbian nationalists dreamed of independence and unity with neighboring Serbia. Among them was a secret group known as the Black Hand, dedicated to resisting Austro-Hungarian rule by any means necessary. It was here that the story begins. On that fateful June day, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, arrived in Sarajevo for a state visit. Their route through the city had been published in advance, a fatal lapse in security. Along that route waited 7 conspirators, young men armed with grenades, pistols, and cyanide capsules. At 10:10 a.m., one of them hurled a grenade at the Archduke's car. The explosive bounced off, detonating under a following vehicle. Several officers were wounded, but the Archduke survived. The motorcade pressed on. Franz Ferdinand insisted on continuing his duties, determined to visit the hospital where the injured had been taken. But fate intervened. At 11:01 a.m., the driver made a wrong turn onto Franz Josef Street. Standing there by chance was Gavrilo Princip, a frail 19-year-old student who had failed earlier that morning. He seized the moment, stepped forward, and fired 2 shots. Sophie was struck in the abdomen. Franz Ferdinand was hit in the neck. Within minutes, both were dead. The murders in Sarajevo sent shockwaves across Europe. What might have been dismissed as an isolated act of terrorism quickly escalated. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia, supported by Russia, resisted. Within weeks, the alliances that were meant to preserve peace instead dragged the continent into catastrophe. Germany declared war on Russia and France. Britain, bound by treaty, joined the fight. By August 1914, the world was at war. The First World War became a conflict of unimaginable scale. Trenches stretched across Europe. Poison gas, machine guns, and heavy artillery killed millions. By the time the guns fell silent in 1918, an estimated 20 million people were dead, and empires that had ruled for centuries had collapsed into history. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand was not the sole cause of World War I. Yet it was the spark that ignited a continent soaked in fuel. It is a reminder of the fragility of peace, and how the actions of one determined individual can unleash consequences far beyond imagination. On that street corner in Sarajevo, a young man with a pistol altered the destiny of nations. The world would never be the same again. This was the story of the Sarajevo assassination, the moment that set the world ablaze.